Hi, I'm Diane Brady, and welcome to Forbes Newsroom. We have a treat with you, Rob Pace, the founder and CEO of HundredX, which has been a partner, by the way, with Forbes on the Halo 100. We're talking today about peak Tesla. Before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about what you do as to how you actually can tell us that we are at peak Tesla. And welcome.
Thank you, Diane. We try to become an independent voice of the crowd in terms of being able to provide a perspective that is independent of brands as to what the consumer really thinks. And the way we do that is fairly unique. We work with over 700 nonprofits, and their supporters give us that data as a way to raise funds for the nonprofits, which we are thrilled to provide that funding. So we have over 200,000 consumers, 6 million data points of regular people saying, here's what I like, here's the brands I care about, and here's what I like and don't like. And so we're really just reporters of what the crowd is saying to us. And so that's the basis upon which all of our conclusions are drawn.
And the crowd, you said, does not like Tesla. I mean, give me some context. Did they love it before? I mean, I guess so, based on earnings and such.
Yeah, I would definitely not say they don't love Tesla. In fact, I feel very lonely even talking slightly negatively about Tesla. So I think it's useful to frame it. So the company's valued now at almost $1 trillion. It's up 50%. And there are a lot of tailwinds, right? Government stimulus towards EVs, the consumer focusing on sustainability, high gas prices. And as you point out, it was one of our original top 100 brands that consumers love in the Forbes Halo list. So certainly wouldn't be saying that the sky is falling for Tesla. But what we do see for the first time ever in our data is that particularly for those consumers that make over $100,000 a year,
which I'd call a core customer, by the way, right? That's the market for Tesla.
That is their core demographic. I've read that the statistic is their average consumer earns $150,000. So clearly the sweet spot. And what we're seeing, Diane, is they're now trending below the competition.
And the competition being Toyota, like all the big automakers that are getting into this space, or what would you characterize as the competition?
Well, we track the largest 40 brands, so it's a holistic viewpoint, and they clearly dominate the EV market. But just to give you some stats, historically, when we ask the question of current Tesla owners, do you expect that your next car is going to be a Tesla? We usually get a 60+% yes after subtracting those who say no. That number now is in the low 40s, which is actually below the average of that other group. Similarly, another high-level metric, which is commonly used in business, is would you recommend to a friend?
Right, like a net promoter, right.
Yeah, and Tesla has always been up in the 60s, which is a fabulous score. And again, with that wealthiest consumer, we're now seeing it down in the 40s, and it's actually crossed over. So I think our point is that of relative weakness.
Right, that's what I was going to ask, because there's the I don't love it as much as I used to crowd, or it could be that all of these automakers are going big into this space. Which do you perceive it to be? Is it really that there's more options and so they do fall relative to that?
Yeah, it's the latter, and it's fascinating as somebody who is a student of strategy, in that you had the disruptor Tesla going after the incumbents, and now they're the incumbents, and the new disruptors are the former leaders in the industry. And you see that with Netflix, you see that a bunch of places. But it's the other people are getting good enough. I mean, and the reason I say that is we still see incredibly positive scores about their technology, performance, etc. It's just the others are closing the gap.
Do you measure leadership at all? Out of curiosity, do you ask people about that? Because we've certainly perhaps seeing Elon Musk in a new light with the Twitter battle. Is that factored in, do you think?
A little bit. That's where I first went, just because it's so high profile. So indirectly, what we ask is about brand values and trust. And if people have a call out positive or negative, then we ask about 5 factors, one of which is social stances. So it's interesting. There is an elevated set of comments around social stances for Tesla. It actually splits about half and half.
When you say elevated set, what do you mean by that?
More people are commenting on it than they have in the past,
Okay.
for sure. But it's actually mixed. But we wouldn't attribute it to driving this phenomenon that we're talking about. Then the reason is because it doesn't correlate back to, is my next one going to be a Tesla or not?
Right.
So yes, it's part of the narrative, but I don't think it's the thing. We don't think it's the thing that's driving. It's a more fundamental customer experience thing that we're seeing.
And I want to point out one reason I'm curious about this is you actually have a good track record on spotting these canary in the coal mine sort of moments. Talk a little bit about some of the previous trends that you've seen early through this type of both social listening, but it's much more than that. It's soliciting opinions from consumers.
Yeah, and one of the things that we do that's very different is the consumers pick the brands they care about. So these are not professional survey takers, and they're just saying, here's the truth.
And you don't give them a list of these 5 brands. They have to add it.
Yes, exactly. And I want to be clear, my opinion means very little, but the opinion of 200,000 people means a lot. So to give you some, and I've learned that the crowd is very wise, particularly about their experiences. And it doesn't always show up right away. But I tell you, if I were a leader and I was seeing these inflection points, I would certainly be curious. Right. So what are some of those examples? So Netflix had a really tough first quarter, and we were seeing once they raised prices, our satisfaction data just dropped like a stone. And so a lot of it is seeing it relative to their peers. So that's an example that we saw, and it's stabilized, but it's definitely continued. We've known for years that the consumer didn't care that much about 5G. Every wireless provider did.
Right, lots of advertising, but anything else you're seeing, Rob, in terms of, what else is sort of starting to bubble up that you think that's on the radar at least, or should be?
Well, we've been watching a lot, some of the bellwether names. So it's interesting, this week, Walmart and Target both reported, and we were seeing some stability in Walmart, in fact, some improvement, but relative weakness in Target. And that's exactly what just played out this week. So we're watching the retail sector. We're watching price a lot. So we get from people, do they feel good, not good about price, or skip it? And as you might imagine, with inflation, those trends continue. Now, for a while, there was so much money that consumers had that it wasn't affecting them. More recently, particularly for those who are below the median income, we're starting to see that really play through in our data. Those are just a couple of examples.
Great. Well, anything else you'd like to say on the Tesla front? It's definitely one to watch. I don't know if there's other factors going forward that you'll be looking at. It sounds like it really is about the competitive landscape.
Yeah, it's their core consumer and the competitors closing the gap. And we see it, though, in a number of things like service department experience, overall value, etc. So it's definitely one to watch. As I said, there's a lot of tailwind, so it might not play out right away. But in my experience, doing this for a long period of time, it's rare that there's a disconnect between customer experience and how businesses perform over the long term. So it would be a very big kind of contrarian call if indeed our trends continue to play out.
Great. Rob Pace, thank you very much.
Thanks, Diane.